Welcome to Friday Night Torah Study! Woo! And tonight is a double. Tonight we're having a double Torah portion, which is Vayikra and Tzav. And we have a special presentation given by Rebbitzin, Julie, Selena, and the MTOI team tonight. Yes. Followed by our zone, the beginning of our zone 3. Tonight is zone 3. You'll hear more about it during announcements, but that begins tonight. So make sure tonight while you're taking notes during the Torah portion that you remember, if you got any questions, make sure you write them down because you can jump right into the zone 3 meeting tonight at 10 p.m. and you can ask all your questions if we run out of time, just in case. All right? But tonight, if this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you to our Friday night Torah study. We do this every Friday night, with the exception of feasts. You'll hear more about it later during announcement time. At 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's when we do our Torah study on Friday nights. We start the night off with our Erev Shabbat fellowship meal. We do some liturgy. We eat together. Then we go right into Shabbat with our Torah study at 7:30. So we get to start Shabbat together, and we get to end it tomorrow because we don't like to go home after the sun goes down. We like to stay and hang out and fellowship. So we get to start Shabbat together. We get to end it together as a mishpachah. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Amen. So the order of service is a little different. So we're going to start off our service as we normally do with prayer and praise. The only thing will be when it's time for the readings, Rebbitzin and her team will come up and do their presentation, okay? But other than that, we're going to have service the normal way we have it. So we always start our services with prayer and praise. So if you have a prayer or praise here locally, you can start lining up. If you're online or Rumble or live stream, you can start typing in now. We do have our Shamish team in the room keeping the peace. So if you're visiting us for the first time, we welcome you, but be nice, be kind, all right? Be kind and be respectful. We do appreciate that. If this isn't for you, we understand. Just scroll to the next channel. But I'm sure if you stay, you'll get something very positive and impactful out of tonight's Torah portion and presentation. All right, we got anybody here locally? Rabbi Stu! That's for Gracie.
I almost forgot I was supposed to come up here to, all right, so Rabbi Tom has had some medical work done. I guess, he's got a problem with his foot, and so he just wanted me to make sure to let you guys know. First of all, he's doing well.
Yeah.
And they did some work on him, and by the way, he called every day asking us to give him more work to do.
Yeah.
From the hospital.
From the hospital. Yeah.
Rabbi Tom, you are an inspiration.
Yes, you are.
'Cause I know you're watching.
Yep.
Okay, so just wanted to make sure we all continue to pray for a speedy recovery and that what they did would work to help his circulation to his foot.
Amen.
And so we're with you in prayer, and we miss you, and we're looking forward to you being back here soon.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Steve. That's awesome. All right. Do we got anybody on live stream? Not yet? Well, we also want to keep in prayer all of those that have reached out this week with prayers and praises and counseling. We're definitely in feast mode, so we've been getting ready, getting super powered and ready to go for the feast. Just a reminder, since it's prayer and praise, keep in prayer. We have about 119 more slots available to be taken for the volunteer. So if you can take on more slots for volunteer for the feast, you're welcome to do as many as you can handle at this point. And guess what? We only have about 3 people total that did not sign up for volunteer shifts. So what does that mean? That's very positive. We should be excited. We only have 3 people that we couldn't reach that don't have volunteer. Everybody else, so that's 99.7%? 99.7 of people volunteering. So you guys really stood up to the plate and did a great job. But we still have 119 slots. Now let me explain a little bit why we have those. We shortened some of the time ranges so you wouldn't be 8+ hours, 7+ hours in one volunteer spot. So we broke those down a little smaller in 3 and 4 hour increments. So some of you might be taking a shift for 4 hours, and you might pick up the next shift for the next 4 hours or something like that. But that's why we have that gap and still have some volunteer spots available. But they are available. If you want to fill them, you're definitely more than welcome to fill those spots. For the Torah portion tonight, as we go through, as usual, you want to be trying to glean and pull out of the Torah portion what you can use to apply to your life now. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting tonight. very visual and impactful, as it always is when Rebbetzin goes through her presentation with her team. So many good pictures, and really gives you a visual of what we're reading through, instead of sometimes just reading through all the things, right? So it gives you good visuals. But make sure you're still taking notes, because you can definitely get something out of it. Rabbi always mentions the detail, how Abba is very detailed. If you get nothing else, make sure you're looking and recognizing how very detailed and specific he is when he's talking about the things that belong to him. Amen? Including us. We're perfect, right? Only if we allow him to work in us and allow us to be perfect and transform us into the image of his son, Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen? All right. Anybody popped up on live stream or Rumble? No? All right. We're going to open in prayer with what we have. All right. We got Chris Wybe coming up. If you would all stand, Chris Wybe will open us up in prayer.
Abba, Father, we come before you today and lift up these prayers and praises, the one that was spoken and also the ones that are unspoken, both live stream and here, as we all are wanting things for ourselves, and but also want to also put whatever you want first. Amen. And accept whatever you have for us. We're also entering this Torah study, and we're going to study the book of Leviticus now. And so in this book, I pray that you show us what we need to know and understand, so that we can be acceptable in your eyes. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to have Brianna come up now and take us through the announcements. Come on, let's give her a hand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, can you move it up a little bit? It's too low. Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Start by welcoming our guests. So if this is your first time joining us online or in the room, we'd like to welcome you to our Torah study as well as our Erev Shabbat service. So we like to start, usually we do our Torah portion part, but this week we get a really special treat with Rebitz and Julie doing the Torah portion. So I'm going to take us through the announcements first. So with that, I get to introduce to you what we provide as a ministry, as well as some current events coming up. So starting with our live streamed events, we live stream on YouTube and Rumble twice a week, starting with our Shabbat service. So this will be every Shabbat at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Online, you can join at 1 o'clock and start typing in the chat Shabbat Shalom and getting to know everybody. But our service typically lasts until 5:30 p.m. So it takes up majority of the day. So we really look forward to getting to know you all and seeing you all. And this weekend's really special, so we'll go into that a little bit more later. And then the next one that we do is our Torah study, which is what we're doing right now. This is every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We start with our Erev Shabbats here locally, so if you want to join us for that, it's at 6 p.m. And basically we do our Erev Shabbat service, and we really get to introduce the Shabbat together, so that's really a great thing to do. But with our Torah study, we go over the Torah portion of the week. This week's a little bit different, but we're going to have a visual representation. We're going to get to see some of the very beautiful graphics that are part of the Parsha Pearls program. So that's really exciting. And so after that, usually we can ask questions. If we don't get to questions tonight, I know that we have a full Q&A weekend, so definitely save your questions for that. But something to keep in mind is we will not have a Torah study April 11th or the 18th. So we're doing a double portion tonight. So lots of exciting things tonight. All right. And we also have a children program called Parsha Pearls. This is created by Rebitz and Julie. So this is a program designated and designed for our children so that they can learn the Torah portions at their level. So we have a website, MTOI.org. So this is dedicated to all of the stuff that goes along with the Parsha Pearls program. We split the content into 2 different age groups. So the younger group is Gem Seekers. They're ages 5 through 8. And the older group is the Pearl Seekers, which is ages 9 through 99 plus. So really, this program doesn't just have to be for children. It's for all children of Israel. So definitely take advantage of this program. It is really insightful. It's a lot of fun, especially for the children to really engage, because I know that the service can be a little bit on the longer side for a child, and it's really a great way to keep them engaged, have fun, and learn. So what is included in the program is child-friendly stories and lessons, lesson questions, Hebrew word studies, memory verses, word searches, crossword puzzles, mazes, crafts, notebook pages, coloring pages, even a song and a snack, all related to the Torah portion of the week. If you have any questions about that, you can reach out to Revis and Julie through her email, parshapearls@mtoi.org. She also posts the portion of the week starting on Sundays so that you can have access to it during the week and go over the content with your children. All right, we also have a Parsha schedule available. So this is so that you can follow along with us. And what we will be doing each Torah study is the Torah portion of the week. So if you wanted to know which one we will be doing, the dates on the Torah portion schedule correspond to what we will do on the Torah studies. So then you can read ahead and be prepared for each Torah study. So if you want to download this, it's on our website under the Resources tab. For the teenagers, we have the Torah Teens class with Rabbi Tom. So this class is every Thursday at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And as it says in the title, it's for teenagers. So this is for those who are between ages 13 through 19. So if your teenager's interested in joining, it is on Zoom. So it's a really great way so that any teenager abroad or here in the United States can have access to the meeting so that they can really get to engage with each other. And so if you've not joined the class before, you email toratime@mtoi.org. You get an autoresponder link, and then you can use that for all of the classes going forward. Depending on your time zone, you might want to pick one of the 3 designated times, or you can go to as many as you'd like, because I know some do that. Just keep in mind there will be no class on April 10th and the 17th. We have audio scripture readings on our website, read by Ms. Shara Wendling. So she read the entirety of scripture, and she read the first 5 books according to their Torah portion. So that's really a neat way to listen to the Torah portion if you want to do that during the week. She does a great job with the inflections and everything. On YouTube, we post Monday through Fridays. Starting with Mondays, we get our first look. So this is just a great preview to the teaching that we will be posting later in the week, giving you the highlights. Then on Tuesdays, we get our YouTube shorts. They are 10 videos, 1-minute long segments taken from a teaching, and they're just great little nuggets and reminders for everybody. Then on Wednesdays, we get our full teaching. So we have What is the Good News, Part 22. So this is the end of the teaching series. So if you haven't seen all the teaching parts, I'd go ahead and watch them all. This is a great teaching series. And then we're looking forward to what he'll be teaching next. So that's exciting. Then on Thursdays, we get our Afterburn. So this is a Q&A session from the teaching. So if you were curious what kinds of questions people were asking, you can definitely watch that. Maybe some of your questions will get answered. Then lastly, Fridays, we get our In Focus videos. These are short videos that are really important topics that we take out of a teaching, and we decide that they're so important they should have their own video. So I definitely recommend watching these. We're on social media, so you can find us on Facebook as MTOI Worldwide, TikTok as MTOI_Worldwide, also Instagram MTOI_Worldwide. If you're following those, I just posted a little reel of the new building, just walking through it a little bit. If you want to check that out, there's nothing in it right now, but it's just cool to see, not just photos, but I took a video of it. So if you want to check that out, It's on all the platforms, so you can pick one. But yeah, definitely follow us with social media because you can just stay in touch with everything that we're doing here. And then we're also on Rumble. So I had mentioned that earlier. You can watch the live streams through Rumble, and you can watch all of the YouTube content there as well. All right. We have our own MTOI app. So if you don't have the app, this is the best way to have access to everything that we provide. It's all in one spot, so it makes it really convenient. So the app has our teachings, all the links to like the Holy Day schedule, the Parsha schedule, and you can listen to my music through there, my praise music. So if you don't want to listen to it through like a subscription to like Apple Music or something, you can just listen to it for free on the app. And so I definitely recommend getting that, especially for general notifications. If Rabbi has an announcement to make, it's easy to just send it out through the app and everybody gets notified. So that's with the app. If you want to get notifications, you have to go to the profile button in the upper right corner. You're going to scroll down to notifications. Then you're going to see the general button, slide it. It should turn green, and then you'll get all the notifications from any of the new videos or announcements. So this weekend is really awesome. We have our zone meetings. So we're an international ministry. So we try to reach everybody at least once a month during their Shabbat time because everybody's got different time zones and everything. So it's really hard for everyone to watch the live stream during their actual Shabbat time. So this is a way to keep everybody connected, and also they get to ask questions. So tonight, after the Torah study, we will have Zone 3. So this is for those who are in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Philippines, Malaysia, and all related time zones. They get to ask their questions tonight. So as soon as the Torah study ends, basically that's when this will start. So it'll start at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So this meeting is on Zoom. If you've never joined before, you will email zoom@mtoi.org. You'll get an autoresponder link. Then you can use that for all of the Zone meetings going forward. Now, just because those in Zone 3 are asking the questions, everybody from any zone is encouraged to join. So I'll be joining. I know mostly everybody here joins. So it's really great to see everybody show up because we're family and it's kind of like a family gathering. We don't record the session, so if you end up not being able to show up, you won't be able to access the content at a later date. So then tomorrow, we get Zone 2. So this is those in United Kingdom, Europe, and Africa. They get to ask their questions. So at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So again, this one is going to be on Zoom as well. And for everybody to join, just those in Zone 2 get to ask questions. Okay, and then later that day, during our regular live stream time, so you'll join our regular Shabbat service, instead of, I don't know what that was. It was my reel, actually. It's okay. So instead of a teaching, we get the Zone 1 meeting. And this week, or this month, it'll be for the local Beth Shalomers. So if you're here locally, even if you're not a local and you're visiting, you get to ask questions. So this will be tomorrow. And every other month, we alternate with those who are United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, and Central America. But this month, it's for those who are here attending locally. All right. So, I don't know what this is. He added a new line, and I don't know what that means. He wrote, during the service on YouTube and Rumble with Zoom interaction. Oh, that's next month? Oh, okay. I was like, that's not, okay. Doesn't apply. So if you have any questions that you don't want to bring to a Zone meeting, you can go to our Contact Us page on the website, or you can send us an email to questions@mtoi.org. So, really exciting. Pesach's coming up. So we're really excited for that. Literally coming up in a week. So April 11th through the 20th is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So registration is closed, as we've been announcing that. If you happen to come across us and you want to register, we have late late registrations are subject to availability, so you are going to have to call the office number, and then you'll have to get in contact with leadership through that. But there is a late registration fee of $50 per family, and with that, our schedule is available on the website under the Passover page. So if you want to go ahead and download that so that you have it for the week, I would recommend that. The Passover meal is Saturday night, April 12th. The holy days are Sunday, April 13th, and Saturday, April 19th. So if you're attending here, we have the YMTOI Pesach program songs available on the YMTOI website. So if your child is joining us for the program, you're going to go to the link that says right there, or you go ymtoi.org, and then underneath the dropout menu, there should be something that says the Armor of Elohim. And that's the topic that we'll be going over with the kids, and they have to learn their song and be ready. Be ready, one of my songs. They have to be ready in advance, so once they get here, they should know the song by heart. We're not really teaching them the song, we're just kind of helping them do it all together, but they should already know all the words in advance. So with that, you can download, there's a vocal track, there is the track that's just music, and then there's lyrics. So please take advantage of all that so that your child is prepared in advance. We have 2 teaching series that are related to Passover. So Passover Q&A, there's 2 episodes. So this is like more of like a physical leaven questions, like practical questions that people will have on like how to do Passover correctly. And then the Get Out the Leaven, which is 3 episodes, which is a part of the Covenant Community 101. This is more about like spiritual leaven and like what that actually means. And Rabbi kind of gets into that and explains it differently than like Christianity has taught it. So definitely I would recommend watching both of those, especially since Passover is literally coming up. So I would definitely get ready, get your houses ready, because there's no excuse in this matter. We've been announcing it. All right. So we also have a set apart cooking, I think 2 episodes or is it in 1 episode? So in 1 episode, they're making unleavened bread and tortillas. So if you want to learn how to make unleavened bread and or tortillas, they're really tasty, and it's super fun to make. So I definitely recommend watching the video. Or if you don't want to make it and just watch the video, I do that too. So definitely go ahead and check out all those videos. If you're not attending our local Passover meal, we have a Haggadah tutorial so that you know how to do the service. We also have links to the official MTOI Haggadah there and the music that goes along with the service. Volunteer signups have been going well. We still have over about 100 slots to fill. So please consider picking up an extra shift. If you have not volunteered, please go ahead and sign up as soon as you possibly can. If you did not receive the email, which at this point everyone should have, but if you haven't, you need to contact the office number, 423-250-3020, or you can email feasts@mtoi.org. But with the link, you will sign yourself up for the volunteer shifts. And something to remind you guys, please bring your lanyards if you have one from a previous feast, and your name tag holder, like the clear plastic holder, because then you'll get a new card to put in it. Yeah, if you don't have one or if something crazy happens, we can give you another one. But if you have one, it's nice that we don't have to waste more. Okay. We have, the next thing to announce is the leadership meeting. So this is April 27th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. So these meetings are with all of our leadership, the men around the world. They join once a month to do these meetings, and we want to announce it because it's very important that we be praying for these meetings and mark it on our calendars so that we're doing our part as they are getting together in honor of the Father to try to serve the body in the best they can, and we should be praying for that. Okay, then the last thing to announce is Rosh Chodesh for ER. So this will be on Tuesday, April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be live streamed, so the service isn't very long, but Rabbi, he does a really great, he says something different every time, but it's always along the lines of great motivation for the month, things to be working on, to better ourselves. So there are really great teachings come out of the Rosh Chodesh. So especially last week's, you should go back and watch that if you didn't watch that. Okay. All right, well, that is all for me. So now Rabbi Steve and then Rebitz and Julie.
All right. Pay no attention to that roadie that came back earlier to work the microphone. All right, so excellent job, Brianna. Thank you. All right, a couple of things real quickly. So first of all, I didn't send out the app message yet. It normally goes out in about 5 minutes at 8 o'clock. But I will be sending one out as soon as I get off the microphone. And this one will be coming from our mishpacha in South Africa. Okay? We asked the leaders from the leadership meeting to start giving us some messages. So all you other leaders, I've only gotten from one. So give us those messages from your area so we can kind of put that out there. 140 characters is the limit, okay? Kind of like, Twitter used to be, whatever. I don't know how long you can type a Twitter thing, but anyway. All right. There was something else I wanted to mention. Okay, so with the lanyards, okay, so the reason we want you to bring your own lanyards, a lot of you did the color code stuff with the lanyards, so bring your already set up lanyards with your colors and all that kind of stuff. We have more. If somebody, somehow yours got messed up and whatever, that's fine, we can give you one. But just, it helps if you have them when you bring them, and then it makes it a lot easier. All right, I really don't know how we're going to do that if we want to start doing it with the Myers-Briggs letters. That doesn't have really a way to do that. But, hey, so, we're not going to... Look, all you ISFJs needs to calm down, okay? No, of course, you're not the ones making all the noise. All right. But that's just, I got mostly that in the... Okay, we haven't had everybody do the test yet. Anyway. Okay, so I want to bring up Rebbetzin in a second here. So, as a matter of fact, why don't you come up and start setting up and getting set, and I'll talk over you for a second, right? While you're getting your stuff lined up here. All right, so this is the beginning of Vayikra, Leviticus, okay? And so it starts off with the sacrifices. Okay, you have 5 offerings that are required and are described here in these first couple of chapters, okay? And, of course, because we have the feast coming up, okay, we're not going to do this next Friday because we're going to get right into the feast pretty much since it starts Saturday night. And so we're going to do a double tonight. We're going to do Vayikra and Tzav. Okay, so we're going to go from 1:1, chapter 1, verse 1, all the way to 8, whatever that said on the screen, 30-something, right? Okay. Now, we've done this in the past, and we didn't do it this year. We've had Rebbetzin do quite a bit when it came to the tabernacle, etc. Of course, I know I have a bunch of going, he's letting women do stuff. Well, why not? Okay. And so this is a fantastic presentation to help you really engage and experience and understand what's being described when it comes to the offerings, okay? And so this is also going to give you a sense of what's in the MTOI program, as the children are taught these things as well. Okay, fantastic artwork by Vera Linton, who's our artist. Okay? And so I'm going to turn this over here in a second. So I don't know that there'll be a lot of time for questions because we're going through 2 Torah portions with slides, and Selena's going to be assisting Rebbe and Julie in doing the readings. But at each point where there's supposed to be a pause, and she'll explain the pointer on the screen to whatever so you know what you're looking at. So that may not get it done, enough time for some questions. So if you have questions, bring them to the zone meeting, okay? All right, now, of course, it is zone 3 that gets to ask the question, so bring them tomorrow if you're in zone 2, bring them in the afternoon if you're in zone 1, okay? So just so that we are clear on how that's going to work, okay? All right, now, so let me go ahead and put the microphone and set it up for Rebbetzin, and then we will have tonight's Torah portion presented by the MTOI team.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Rhodey. Okay, well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be able to present tonight's Torah portion. We had thought we were going to take a break this year because we wanted to update some drawings, but my Cracker Jack team, when I told them that Rabbi and I were talking about possibly doing tonight's Torah portion, I had mentioned that I know we have some drawings to update, and we totally don't have to update them. We'll just leave them as they are, but my very professional women said, we'll help. We'll get new drawings in there. So we'll see if you can find what the new drawings but I'll try to point out some of them. All right, so we have over 120 slides to go through tonight, so we're going to try to be thorough, but we'll also have to be pretty expedient about it because I can say quite a bit about this. This is part of my passion. I love learning about the high priest and the garments, and I also love learning about the dwelling place, and part of that is the sacrifices that took place there. I didn't really love learning that so much, to be honest. I was intimidated to do it years ago, but now, I'm like, this is not so hard. Literally, you could be intimidated by something one year, and 2 or 3 years later, you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. Just keep at it. So hopefully we'll do a good job tonight. And so we're going to go ahead and start reading the Torah portion for Vayikra. So Vayikra means, and he called. And we were going to be reading chapter 1 through 6, 7. For Vayikra, showing slides along the way. And I'll be circling things, so if you pay attention to the slides, I may comment on a slide, or we may just go forward if it's self-explanatory, but I definitely will be circling things, so if you pay attention to the slides more than my face, I appreciate it. All right, here we go. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, When any one of you brings an offering to Yahweh, you bring your offering of the livestock, of the herd, or of the flock.
Okay, so in chapter 1, we're going to be going over what the burnt offering was and how to perform it. So tonight we're going to go over all the 5 offerings. 3 of them are voluntary, the burnt offering, the grain offering, and the peace offering. And then we're going to go over the mandatory offerings, which was the sin offering and then the guilt offering. And by the end of the evening, you'll all be experts. All right, so the burnt offering, in Hebrew, the word is olah. And so it's better translated an ascending offering because it will be completely burned up and going up to Yahweh. It is also associated with the festival of Passover. All the different offerings are associated with one of the feasts, and so we'll go into that too. But the purpose of the burnt offering, even though it's a voluntary offering, meaning that you didn't have to bring it, you did it from the bottom of your heart, is atonement for the offerer and expression of devotion to Yahweh.
If his offering is a burnt offering of the herd, let him bring a male, a perfect one. Let him bring it at the door of the tent of meeting for his acceptance before Yahweh.
Okay, so here we have a bull that is being brought. It had to be a male. And so the offerer is bringing it to the priest at the gate there leading into the courtyard. And it had to be perfect, meaning it's without defect or blemishes.
And he shall lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it shall be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. And he shall slaughter the bull before Yahweh. And the sons of Aharon, the priest, shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood all around the altar, which is at the door of the tent of meeting.
Okay, so here the offerer actually does the slaying of the animal. The priest does not do that for any of the burnt offerings, but the priest will take the blood and then sprinkle it all over that bronze altar. Okay, so so what the offerer would do is slit that jugular vein, and so that the animal would die in a humane manner.
And he shall skin the burnt offering and cut it into its pieces.
Okay, there we see the skin and all the pieces.
And the sons of Aharon the priest shall put the fire on the altar and lay the wood in order on the fire. And the sons of Aharon the priests shall arrange the pieces with the head and the fat on the wood, which is on the fire on the altar. But its entrails and its legs he washes with water. And the priest shall burn all of it on the altar as a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh.
Okay, so here we see a visual of that. So the offerer would be washing those entrails and the legs. So here we have our little bronze pot there with the water in it. And then the other pieces, the head and all that, would be offered on the altar as a burnt offering.
And if his offering is from the flock, from the sheep, or from the goats as a burnt offering, let him bring a male, a perfect one.
Okay, so here we have our two male animals. We have the ram here and the male goat, and they're being brought to the gate just like that bull was, and then they lay their hands on the head of the animal. So I believe this is so that they can identify with the animal, and the interesting thing I found here is that the animal was brought to the north side of the courtyard, but the bull wasn't. So I think that had a lot to do with not like bumping into each other, like there was a bull being done on this side of the courtyard, and then the flock was done on the north side. So Yahweh's very specific about these little things.
And he shall slaughter it on the north side of the altar before Yahweh. And the sons of Aharon, the priests, shall sprinkle its blood on the altar all around.
Okay, so same thing as the bull. The offerer would slay the animal, and then the blood would be sprinkled on the altar by the priest.
And he shall cut it into its pieces, with its head and its fat, and the priest shall arrange them on the wood, which is on the fire on the altar. But the entrails and the legs he washes with water. And the priest shall bring it all and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh.
Okay, so the entrails and that would always be washed with water so that it's clean, because that's like the dirty part of the body. So I find that interesting that Yahweh required that to be washed. The head and the rest of it wasn't washed. It was just directly put on it. And they say that sometimes they can accidentally puncture those parts, so that's why they would actually wash it.
And if the burnt offering of his offering to Yahweh is of birds, then he shall bring his offering of turtle doves or young pigeons.
Okay, so here we see if you financially would not be able to afford, an animal like a bull or a ram or a male goat, you could instead bring a pigeon or a turtle dove.
And the priest shall bring it to the altar, and shall wring off its head, and burn it on the altar, and its blood shall be drained out at the side of the altar.
Okay, so here we see the bird. So they didn't like totally take the head off, it was just severed, and then it was laid on the altar. And then the blood was just drained out at the side. And of course, it's called a sweet fragrance because of obedience. Anytime you do anything in obedience to what Yahweh wants, it's a sweet fragrance to him.
And he shall remove its crop with its feathers and throw it beside the altar on the east side into the place for ashes. And he shall split it at its wings, but not sever it. And the priest shall burn it on the altar, on the wood that is on the fire. It is a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh.
So again, Yahweh is very specific about how he wants the bird cut, split at its wings, but not severed. So there's attention to detail here in what Yahweh wants. And if you did it the way he wanted, it's a sweet fragrance to him.
And when anyone brings a grain offering to Yahweh, his offering is to be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it and put frankincense on it.
Okay, so now chapter 2, we're going to be delving into the grain offering. This is the only one of the offerings that was not an animal sacrifice. And so the purpose of the grain offering as a voluntary offering was to give thanks or praise to Yahweh. And it's a showing expression of devotion to Yahweh and recognizing his goodness and provision. Okay, so when we look at what he asked for this fine flour, and I've mentioned before that this fine flour means you're giving him your best, okay? And it wasn't a easy way to get this fine flour. You didn't just go to Walmart and pick up a bag. So you would have to actually grind the flour, okay, and just make it into powder. And the frankincense, too, this was a costly thing to acquire as well. And the frankincense comes from a resinous gum and from a tree. And so it has very good healing properties. And it is a very sweet fragrance. If you've ever put it as, like as an oil, it's a wonderful smell. And the grain offering usually wasn't offered by itself. It was usually an accompaniment to another offering, like the burnt offering. And the Hebrew word for the grain offering is mincha, and it is associated with Shavuot.
And he shall bring it to the sons of Aharon, the priests, and he shall take from it in his hand, filled with fine flour and oil, with all the frankincense. And the priest shall burn it as a remembrance portion on the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh.
Okay, so the offerer would bring this, doughy lump, and the priest would take a handful of it, and that portion would be burned on the altar.
And the rest of the grain offering is for Aharon and his sons, most set apart of the offerings to Yahweh by fire.
Okay, so after the remembrance portion was burned, the rest of it went to the priests and their families so that they had food to eat. Because remember, they didn't have a different job. They weren't shepherds, they weren't farmers, and so they had to be fed somehow. And so the sacrificial system did help enable them to be fed. And so they would eat this grain offering with their families.
And when you bring as an offering a grain offering baked in the oven, it is of unleavened cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened thin cakes anointed with oil. But if your offering is a grain offering on the griddle, it is of fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil. Divide it into bits and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. And if your offering is a grain offering in a stewing pot, it is made of fine flour with oil.
Okay, so you just have different ways you can make this unleavened bread. You can make it thicker, thinner, flatter, more crispy. And you could, if it was cooked, it would have to be done in the oven. Here, you can see that, or on a griddle, or in a stewing pot. And it's always mixed with oil.
And you shall bring to Yahweh the grain offering that is made of these, and shall present it to the priest, and he shall bring it to the altar. And the priest shall take from the grain offering a remembrance portion, and burn it on the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh.
Okay, so here we see the offerer is bringing his unleavened breads to the priest that are cooked, whether it was in the oven or on the griddle or in a pot. And then always the priest would take a handful of remembrance portion to give to Yahweh. And then the rest would be for him and his family to eat. And of course, it's a sweet fragrance because of obedience.
And the rest of the grain offering is for Aharon and his sons, most set apart of the offerings to Yahweh made by fire. No grain offering which you bring to Yahweh is made with leaven, for you do not burn any leaven or any honey in an offering to Yahweh made by fire. Bring them to Yahweh as an offering of the firstfruits, but they are not burned on the altar for a sweet fragrance. And season with salt every offering of your grain offering, and do not allow the salt of the covenant of your Elohim to be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you bring salt.
Okay. So the grain offering that Yahweh required was unleavened. So no yeast here. We got a big old X on that. And as well as no honey. I know on Shabbat when we do the, Kiddush and Motzi, we do have honey in that because it's not being offered as a grain offering. But honey does have, when it's heated too high, it will spoil. And so, but Yahweh did not want that as part of the grain offering. And of course, we always talk about the salt covenant, and so all the grain offerings had salt.
And if you bring a grain offering of your first fruits to Yahweh, bring for the grain offering of your first fruits green heads of grain roasted on the fire, crushed heads of new grain, and you shall put oil on it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering.
Okay, so this is talking about the first fruits that you would bring when in the land. Okay, so you would have to bring that and wave that before you could eat the first roasted grain.
And the priest shall burn the remembrance portion from its crushed grain and from its oil, with all the frankincense, an offering made by fire to Yahweh.
Okay, let me just, before you start. So now we're going into chapter 3, and we'll talk about the last voluntary offering. This is the peace offering. And this one is called, in Hebrew, the Shlamim. And it's associated with the Festival of Trumpets. Its purpose was for thanksgiving, for completing a vow, for acceptance, and a restored relationship with Yahweh. And we're also going to learn about the 3 different types of peace offerings that one could offer. And so we'll talk about that as we show the slides here. But for the peace offering, I chose to show female animals because the peace offering could be male or female. Since we've already showed the males, we're going to show off the females now. So now we have our cute little cow.
Go back.
Go back.
And if that which he presents is a peace offering, if he is bringing it of the herd, whether male or female, he brings a perfect one before Yahweh.
Okay, so here's our cute little cow, and it's perfect, meaning it's unblemished, unspotted, no defects. And then we'll find out what we do after we bring it to the gate.
And he shall lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it at the door of the tent of meeting. And the sons of Aharon, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood on the altar all around. And from the peace offering he shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And the sons of Aharon shall burn it on the altar upon the burnt offering, which is on the wood, which is on the fire, as an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh.
Okay, so the parts that we just mentioned, these parts are parts that are not eaten. Yahweh didn't want us to eat them, so those would go on the altar to be burned to Yahweh as a sweet fragrance, and then the rest of it, some of it will go to the priest, and some of it will go to the family that brought the peace offering.
And if that which he presents is from the flock, for a peace offering to Yahweh, male or female, he brings a perfect one.
And so here we have our little sheep, our female sheep, and then we have our little female goat here.
If he is bringing a lamb as his offering, then he shall bring it before Yahweh. And he shall lay his hand on the head of his offering, and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. And the sons of Aharon shall sprinkle its blood on the altar round about. And from the peace offering he shall bring near, as an offering made by fire to Yahweh, its fat, all the fat tail which he removes close to the backbone, and the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And the priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And if his offering is a goat, then he shall bring it before Yahweh, and shall lay his hand on its head, and slaughter it before the tent of meeting. And the sons of Aharon shall sprinkle its blood on the altar all around. And from it he shall bring his offering, as an offering made by fire to Yahweh, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And the priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance. All the fat belongs to Yahweh. An everlasting law throughout your generations and all your dwellings. You do not eat any fat or any blood.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little commentary for this slide. So we have a big old X on this fat. So hopefully you understand, not all fat is the same fat, right? There's 2 different words in Hebrew for fat, okay? The fat that he is talking about here for the offering that he didn't want them to eat because they're bringing it specifically so that it can be part of the offering is called halev, okay? So that was not to be eaten. And this is in regard to bringing it for the offering, right? And then there's also some fat that is in between, the meat, this intramuscular fat. That fat can be eaten. Okay, so not all fat is the same fat. But when we're talking about that fat, like the suet and all that. What Yahweh is saying is that when you're doing this peace offering, that fat is mine, okay? Don't take it and use it for yourself, okay? Because you can use that fat. If you're not bringing an offering to Yahweh, you can use that fat, for soap making, and, there's tallow and all that. But if you're bringing an offering to Yahweh, that fat is his. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, okay? We also know, that the word fat is also used to refer to the best, like the fat of the land and things like that. So that's why Yahweh wanted it, that's the best. Okay, and then, of course, the blood, that is, what a lot of the pagans did was they would, drink the blood from an animal. Yep. Well said.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, When a being sins by mistake against any of the commands of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and shall do any of them, if the anointed priest sins, bringing guilt on the people, then he shall bring to Yahweh for his sin which he has sinned a young bull, a perfect one, as a sin offering. And he shall bring the bull to the door of the tent of meeting before Yahweh, and shall lay his hand on the bull's head, and slaughter the bull before Yahweh.
Okay, so now the last few chapters that we're going to be reading here are going to be talking about the mandatory offerings. And so there were two of them. There was the sin offering and the guilt offering. So the first one in chapter 4 and part of chapter 5 we're going to learn about is the sin offering. Better translation for that is actually purification offering, because it was brought so that you could cleanse yourself, so that you could be in Yahweh's presence, because your unintentional sin would separate you from being able to be in his presence. So you would bring that so that you can get that atonement and that purification. So the Hebrew word for sin offering is hatat, and this is actually related to atonement, which totally makes sense, right? Because you're wanting to be at one with Yahweh. And so the purpose of a sin offering or a purification offering, it was atonement for unintentional sin against the set-apart matters of Yahweh and ritual impurity to purify oneself for re-entering the presence of Yahweh, okay? And so we're going to go into different categories of people in regard to a sin offering and different animals they would bring. So the high priest would bring the most expensive animal. He would have to bring a bull so that he would have purification. And so you guys get a little preview. I don't know if you remember last year what our high priest looked like, but he's amazing. We really... Vera and Selena and I, we really looked at the scripture and we're like, I just feel there's just a little bit of tweaking, and we sat down and this is what we came up with. And I think we've got the best drawing of a high priest ever. Literally, we just took the verses apart and okay, where do the rings go? Where does the gold chains go? And now I know we didn't do those Torah portions for you this year, but next year when we really dig into it, we'll show you close-ups of his garments. But he really is adorable. I love it.
And the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood and bring it to the tent of meeting. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before Yahweh in front of the veil of the set-apart place. And the priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of sweet incense before Yahweh, which is in the tent of meeting, and pour all the blood of the bull at the base of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tent of meeting.
Okay, so for the high priest, he actually had to bring that blood into the dwelling place and sprinkle it in front of that veil. Okay, so that's a little bit different from most of the sin offerings. That wouldn't be the case here, but because of his position, he had to do that.
Then he takes all the fat of the bull as the sin offering, the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat which is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys, as it was taken from the bull of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn them on the altar of the burnt offering.
Okay.
But the skin of the bull and all its flesh, with its head and legs, its entrails and dung, all of the bull he shall bring outside the camp to a clean place, where the ashes are poured out, and burn it on wood with fire. Where the ashes are poured out, it is burned. And if the entire congregation of Israel strays by mistake, and the matter has been hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done against any of the commands of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty, when the sin which they have sinned becomes known, then the assembly shall bring a young bull for the sin, and bring it before the tent of meeting. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands on the head of the bull before Yahweh, and the bull shall be slaughtered before Yahweh.
Okay, so we know many instances where the entire congregation of Israel had sinned, and so in those situations, they would bring, one bull to represent everybody, and then the elders would do the work for the people. So they would lay their hands on the bull and then slay the bull for the entire congregation. So this is similar to what the high priest would bring as well.
And the anointed priest shall bring some of the bull's blood to the tent of meeting. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Yahweh in front of the veil, and put some of the blood on the horns of the altar which is before Yahweh, which is in the tent of meeting, and pour all the blood at the base of the altar of burnt offering, which is at the door of the tent of meeting.
So again, this is the same thing, same animal. That blood would be taken and sprinkled in front of that inner veil where the cherubim are. And then he would also take some of that blood and put it on the horns of the altar of incense. And then the rest of it would be poured on the side of the bronze altar.
Then he takes all the fat from it and shall burn it on the altar. And he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull as a sin offering. So shall he do it. And the priest shall make atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them.
Okay, so this is great. When you sin by mistake, unintentionally, there is atonement for that. And so that was the way the entire congregation would have to get the atonement, is by bringing that bull as a sacrifice.
And he shall bring the bull outside the camp and burn it as he burned the first bull. It is a sin offering for the assembly. When a ruler sins, and by mistake has done against any of the commands of Yahweh his Elohim, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty, or if his sin which he has sinned is made known to him, then he shall bring as his offering a buck of the goats, a male, a perfect one.
Okay, so this is our third category of who Yahweh would want a sin offering from and what he wanted. So we went away from the bull now to the ruler would bring a male goat. So it's very specific that Yahweh wanted a ruler to bring that. Again, still an expensive animal.
And he shall lay his hand on the head of the goat and slaughter it at the place where they slaughter the burnt offering before Yahweh. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour its blood at the base of the altar of burnt offering. And burn all its fat on the altar, like the fat of the slaughtering of the peace offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. And if any being of the people of the land sins by mistake, by doing against any of the commands of Yahweh, which are not to be done, and shall be guilty, or if his sin which he has sinned shall be made known to him, then he shall bring as his offering a female goat, a perfect one, for his sin which he has sinned.
Okay, now we're going to go into an individual person and the type of offering that they would be required to bring. So they got to pick from two, so we'll go into that. But the first one that they could bring is a female goat.
And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slaughter the sin offering at the place of the burnt offering. And the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour all the blood at the base of the altar. Then remove all its fat, as fat is removed from the slaughtering of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it on the altar for a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And the priest shall make atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him.
Okay, so they keep saying this is similar to the peace offering and that the same parts are burned on the altar. But none of this is given to the offerer to eat, unlike the peace offering where they would get a part of it to eat.
And if he brings a lamb as his sin offering, he brings a female, a perfect one.
Okay, so this is the second one that they could bring. They could bring either a female goat or a female lamb as for their sin offering to make atonement for their unintentional sin.
And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and slaughter it as a sin offering, at the place where they slaughter the burnt offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour all the blood at the base of the altar. Then he removes all its fat, as the fat of the lamb is removed from the slaughtering of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it on the altar, according to the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. So the priest shall make atonement for his sin that he has sinned, and it shall be forgiven him. And when a being sins in that he has heard the voice of swearing, and is a witness, or has seen, or has known, but does not reveal it, he shall bear his crookedness. Or when a being touches any unclean matter, or the carcass of an unclean beast, or the carcass of unclean livestock, or the carcass of unclean creeping creatures, and it has been hidden from him, he is unclean and guilty. Or when he touches uncleanness of man, any of his uncleanness by which he is unclean, and it has been hidden from him, when he shall know it, then he shall be guilty. Or when a being swears, speaking rashly with his lips to do evil or to do good, whatever it is that a man swears rashly with an oath, and it has been hidden from him, when he shall know it, then he shall be guilty of one of these. And it shall be, when he is guilty of one of these, that he shall confess that in which he has sinned.
Okay, I don't know if you noticed this, but a lot of the verses say that you must confess that which you sinned. So that's taking ownership. Rabbi always talks about that as taking ownership. Okay, and so in all these situations, you would have to confess what you did, and then you would have to bring that mandatory offering for these situations.
And shall bring his guilt offering to Yahweh for his sin which he has sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb or a female goat as a sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement for him for his sin. And if he is unable to bring a lamb, then he shall bring to Yahweh, he who has sinned, 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering.
Okay, so Yahweh, isn't he just very kind and generous that if you financially could not afford to bring, a female lamb or a female goat, then you could go down and get yourself some birds, but then there's also one more that you can bring that we're going to learn about.
And he shall bring them to the priest, who shall bring near that which is for the sin offering first, and wring off its head from its neck, but not sever it. And he shall sprinkle some of the blood of the sin offering on the side of the altar, and the rest of the blood shall be drained out at the base of the altar. It is the sin offering. And he shall prepare the second as a burnt offering, according to the right ruling. And the priest shall make atonement for him, for his sin which he has sinned, and it shall be forgiven him.
So here, for the sin offering, you would actually have to bring 2 birds, either 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, and one of them would be for the purification or sin offering, and then the other one was for a burnt offering. And so you would follow the same procedure as we learned in chapter 1, where you would split it at its wings and then drain the blood on the side.
But if he is unable to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, then he who has sinned shall bring for his offering 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a sin offering. He puts no oil on it, nor does he put any frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering.
Okay, so unlike the grain offering, where you would be required to put the oil with the frankincense, because this is just for the sin offering, you would just bring the flour.
And he shall bring it to the priest, and the priest shall take his hand filled with it as a remembrance portion, and burn it on the altar according to the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement for him, for his sin that he has sinned in any of these, and it shall be forgiven him. And it shall be the priest's like a grain offering.
Okay, so here, because of financial situations, you could go ahead and bring that flour, but always, 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 there's a remembrance portion that goes to Yahweh first.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, when a being commits a trespass and has sinned by mistake against the set-apart matters of Yahweh, then he shall bring to Yahweh as his guilt offering a ram, a perfect one, from the flock, with your valuation in shekels of silver according to the shekel of the set-apart place, as a guilt offering. And he shall make good for the sin that he has done against that which is set apart, and shall add 1/5 to it, and give it to the priest. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering, and it shall be forgiven him. And when any being sins and has done what is not to be done against any of the commands of Yahweh, though he knew it not, yet he shall be guilty and bear his crookedness. Then he shall bring to the priest a ram, a perfect one, from the flock, with your valuation as a guilt offering. And the priest shall make atonement for his mistake he committed unintentionally, though he did not know it, and it shall be forgiven him. It is a guilt offering. He was truly guilty before Yahweh.
Okay, so now we're going into the fifth offering. And again, this is a mandatory offering. So this is the guilt offering. And this is given when you have sinned in a financial transaction to make a restitution to the one that you sinned against. So it's also known as a trespass or reparation offering. And in Hebrew, the word is asham, and it's associated with Sukkot. Okay, so you would bring a ram, and then you would restore an extra 1/5, 20% for one of the matters in a transaction. So we'll talk about that.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, when any being sins and committed a trespass against Yahweh, and has lied to his neighbor about a deposit, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or shall extort from his neighbor, or has found what was lost, and has lied concerning it, or did swear falsely, so that he sins in regard to any one of all these that a man does, then it shall be when he sins and shall be guilty, that he shall return what he took by robbery, or what he has extorted, or the deposit which was deposited with him, or the lost item which he found.
Okay, so here we just have a simple little drawing of someone who has taken some money from someone, and they were found guilty, of course, of this, and so they would have to give back the money that they took as well as an extra 20%.
Or all that about which he swore falsely. He shall repay its total value, add 1/5 more to it, and give it to whom it belongs on the day of his guilt offering. Then he brings his guilt offering to Yahweh, a ram, a perfect one from the flock, with your valuation, as a guilt offering to the priest. And the priest shall make atonement for him before Yahweh, and he shall be forgiven for whatever he did that made him guilty.
Okay, so we just finished Vayikra. And because this presentation is associated with Parsha Pearls, of course, these are the visuals that your children get to experience with us when we write the little gem stories. And even in the Katan B lessons, we have great visuals to go around with the verses. But I wanted to take the time to show you what we actually do at Parsha Pearls. And I'm really proud of the lessons that we have and all the visuals that we have. So I'm going to bring out some of the crafts as well as some pages that we have created for this lesson that I think even adults would really benefit from. Okay, so I want to show you, we have a resource in there called the burnt offering. There we go. So all the things that we just went through, and so we, show you all the visuals of all the different animals that you would bring, and then give you key points for the burnt offering, as well as the Hebrew name, Olah. So great visual. Then we also did one for the peace offering, so you can just put that one down. The grain offering is next, chapter 2. So again, we tell you the Hebrew word, minka. We show you uncooked, cooked, first fruits, and then key verses that go with the grain offering. So this is all very nice to have at your fingertips. And then the third voluntary offering, which is the peace offering. Again, we have the visuals of the different animals that you're allowed to bring, and then key verses, and the Hebrew word, shlamim. Okay, so, not that one. Okay, now I want to show the crafts and the, okay, so. So for Katan A, for Vayikra 24.1, they can make these sock puppets. They're really adorable. So we have a bull, see here, with its little horns, and then a cow. They're just really adorable. And then we have a female and a male sheep there. So we have a ram and a female. Just really cute. They're not that difficult to make, actually. Nice. So that is for Katan A. And then for Katan B, we always make these notebook pages. So on this page here, we show the burnt offering animals as well as the peace offering animals. And actually, you can pull off an animal and flip it around.
Let's do the famous pigeon.
You want to take the famous pigeon?
Yes.
So on the back side, what we did was we did foam so you can see it's being burned up. So all of the animals on the back have foam shapes, and then you'll put them on the altar to be burned up. So there we go. And then we also created a page for the grain offering. This one's really cool too. So in here, we have the Hebrew word mincha for grain offering, and then the different ingredients. Oh, this is all backwards for me. So you have your flour, your salt, and then what's there? I can't see. Your frankincense and your oil. And then you have a stove, or an oven, I mean. And then you have your griddle, and you have your stewing pot. Okay, so this shows all the 3 different ways that you can cook your grain offering, and then the different ingredients. And then we show the person bringing their grain offering to the priest here. And again, these all can be taken off. They're on Velcro. All right, so then we also did one for the mandatory offerings here. So there we have the different Hebrew words for the sin offerings, and then we have the 4 categories of people that were required to bring. So you have the high priest there with the bull, and then you have the congregation there, and they brought a bull as well, so the bull is in between them. And then on the lower left here, you have the ruler with his male goat. And then you have the individual here, and they could bring a female lamb or a female goat. And then they also come off the page. They're on Velcro, so you can pull them off. You can pull them off, and then they're put on the altar. So there we go. So these are just really nice pages to reinforce learning about the different offerings. And yeah, thank you. And we have just a few more. This is all for Vayikra. We just have a lot of fun. So the Katane kids can make a pot and a griddle there. Isn't that cute? So we just painted them with bronze paint. These are just made out of toilet paper rolls. So, yeah, right? And then we have different animals. The kids are actually doing this tomorrow. So we have the bull there for the high priest and for the congregation. Then we have the male goat that the ruler would bring. Okay. And then we have the ram is for the guilt offering, and then this sheep is for the individual. But if you wanted to make this a female, you would just leave the horns off, and then he's a she. And then we also have a pigeon and turtle dove that they can make too. So, yeah. Really cute. And then so those, again, if you have financial limitations, you could bring those as well. All right. So for our last part, we are going to be going into Parsha Tzav. There we go. And let me get my stuff here organized. All right, so Parsha Tzav, it means, and he called. So this is actually a revisit of the offerings. Normally we would do these a week apart, and the nice thing about actually doing them both tonight is that we can revisit them, but then there's also more information. A lot of the information in this one is instruction to the priesthood, and so we get to learn more about what they get and how Yahweh took care of them.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Command Aharon and his sons, saying, This is the Torah of the burnt offering. This is the burnt offering, because it is burned on the altar all night until morning, and the fire of the altar is kept burning on it.
Okay, so now we're revisiting the Torah of the burnt offering, and so that was in chapter 1.
And the priest shall put on his linen garment, and put his linen trousers on his body, and shall take up the ashes of the burnt offering, which the fire has consumed on the altar, and shall put them beside the altar.
Okay, so after the animal is all burned up and there's just ashes left, so Yahweh gives instructions for the priesthood. This is your job now. Now your job is to take up those ashes. They're going to put them in a bronze pot there.
And he shall take off his garments and put on other garments, and shall bring the ashes outside the camp to a clean place.
Okay, so when he was inside the courtyard, he wore those linen garments, but then when he went outside, he took off those linen garments. They were not allowed, like some jobs are like, you can only wear this while you're here. Like when I was a dental hygienist, it's like, okay, take off your nasty clothing, put them in the washing machine and go home, So they left those there, and then they changed so that they could go outside the courtyard here.
And the fire on the altar is kept burning on it. It is not put out. And the priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and arrange the burnt offering on it, and shall burn on it the fat of the peace offerings. Fire is continually kept burning on the altar. It is not put out.
Okay, so we have down here Eish Tamid, so that's the, eternal flame, the eternal burning of the flame that never gets put out. Let me just go back one slide because I wanted to say something about that I missed. Okay, so as I said, the priest actually took out the ashes. When you think about it, they were already doing so much in the courtyard with the animal sacrifices and all that, but their job wasn't done. Yahweh wanted them to do this job as well. He didn't give it to someone else to do, so it wasn't given to the Levites. We knew they had specific jobs as well. It wasn't given to the offerer to do it. It was just for the priesthood to do.
And this is the Torah of the grain offering. The sons of Aharon shall bring it near before Yahweh, in front of the altar, and shall take from it with his hand from the fine flour of the grain offering, and from its oil, and all the frankincense which is on the grain offering, and shall burn it on the altar for a sweet fragrance, as its remembrance portion to Yahweh.
So I call chapter 6 the keep up with us, okay? So we went from a few verses of the burnt offering, now we're going to go into the grain offering, and so just keep up. We're going to be all over the place here. So again, this is the instruction for the priesthood, what their job was, okay? So when the person brought them the grain offering, they were to take that lump, take it in their hand and throw it on the fire with the frankincense and the oil.
Then Aharon and his sons eat the rest of it. It is eaten with unleavened bread in the set-apart place. They eat it in the courtyard of the tent of meeting.
Okay, so you see Aharon and his sons here eating the unleavened bread in the courtyard as instructed. And so again, this was so that they could be fed because they didn't have a job where they could go and, make a living, so they relied on the sacrificial system, and so unlike the burnt offering where they didn't get any part of it, that all went to Yahweh, they got to have a majority of this part so that they could eat.
It is not baked with leaven. I have given it to them as their portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most set apart, like the sin offering and the guilt offering.
Okay, so this is, the part that the priests would eat there.
All the males among the children of Aharon eat it, a law forever in your generations, concerning the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. All that touches them is to be set apart.
Okay, so this is the lineage of Aharon. They got to be the priesthood.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, This is the offering of Aharon and his sons, which they bring near to Yahweh, beginning on the day when he is anointed, 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour, as a daily grain offering, half of it in the morning and half of it at night.
Okay, so here we're going back to the ordination of the priesthood and what they were supposed to bring.
It is made on a griddle with oil. Bring it in mixed. Bring the baked portions of the grain offering near, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And the anointed priest from among his sons, who is in his place, prepares it, a law forever to Yahweh. All of it has to be burned, and every grain offering for the priest is completely burned. It is not eaten.
Okay, so even the priesthood would bring a grain offering to Yahweh, but unlike the grain offerings that they would get from the people, they were not allowed to eat this at all. All this was given to Yahweh.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to Aharon and to his sons, saying, This is the Torah of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered, the sin offering is slaughtered before Yahweh. It is most set apart.
Okay, now we moved on to the sin offering again. Okay.
The priest who is making atonement eats it. In the set apart place it is eaten, in the courtyard of the tent of meeting.
Okay, so for this one, they are allowed to eat it because they're the ones that actually is doing part of the duties, so they get a portion of it for themselves to eat. The only thing they couldn't eat is if the high priest brought the bowl, or if the congregation, because once that blood was sprinkled on the inner veil, then that animal could not be offered for food to anyone. But the rest of them, like if if the ruler brought one, or if an individual brought a sin offering, then the priesthood got the rest of the animal to eat.
All that touches its flesh is to be set apart, and when its blood is sprinkled on any garment, you wash that on which it was sprinkled in a set-apart place. But the earthen vessel in which it is cooked is to be broken, and if it is cooked in a bronze pot, then it is scoured and rinsed in water.
Okay, as we know, different metals are more porous. Some always hold in, parts of what has been cooked in it, and other ones don't. So if it was of a material that it held it, it was to be broken and not used again.
Every male among the priests eats it. It is most set apart. And no sin offering from which any of the blood is brought into the tent of meeting to make atonement in the set-apart place is eaten. It is burned with fire.
Okay, so just like I said before, the bull that was brought and the blood sprinkled on the veil was not to be eaten, any of it. None of it went to the priesthood, but the rest of these animals here that were brought, a portion of it was given to the priesthood to eat.
And this is the Torah of the guilt offering. It is most set apart. The guilt offering is slaughtered in the place where they slaughter the burnt offering, and its blood is sprinkled on the altar all around. Then he brings from it all its fat, the fat tail, and the fat that covers the entrails, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them by the loins, and the appendage on the liver, which he removes with the kidneys. And the priest shall burn them on the altar as an offering made by fire to Yahweh. It is a guilt offering.
Okay, so of course it has a fat tail because it's from the sheep. So they have these big old fat tails that have a lot of fat in them.
Every male among the priests eats it. It is eaten in the set-apart place. It is most set apart. The guilt offering is like the sin offering. There is one Torah for them both. The priest who makes atonement with it, it is his.
So, of course, the guilt offering was the ram, so they would be eating a portion of that.
And the priest who brings anyone's burnt offering, the skin of the burnt offering which he has brought is the priest's. It is his.
And so now we're back to the burnt offering. So in chapter 1, it doesn't really talk about that, what is done with it. So that's why you have to here a little, there a little, and you put pieces together. So this is where we find out that the whole animal is burned on the altar except for the skin. The skin is given to the priesthood.
And every grain offering that is baked in the oven, and all that is prepared in the stewing pot, or on a griddle, is the priest who brings it. It is his. And every grain offering mixed with oil or dry is for all the sons of Aharon, for all alike.
So what I like about these verses is even going back. So this is where Yahweh lets the people know, the congregation of Israel know, this is what I want the priesthood to have. So there's no question, like they can't say, oh, how come you get the skin, okay? Yahweh tells them. They might be jealous. So he says, they get it, okay? And then he tells them for the grain offering. Okay, they get the rest of it for them too. So there's no question where the offerer would say, well, how come I don't get the rest of it?
And this is the Torah of the slaughtering of peace offerings, which is brought to Yahweh.
Okay, now we're on to peace offerings.
If he brings it for a thanksgiving, then he shall bring it with the slaughtering of thanksgiving, unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened thin cakes anointed with oil, or cakes of finely blended flour mixed with oil. Besides the cakes, he brings as his offering leavened bread together with a slaughtering of thanksgiving of his peace offering.
Okay, so this is talking about a specific type of peace offering, which is the Thanksgiving offering, and it is accompanied with actually leavened bread.
And from it he shall bring one cake from each offering as a contribution to Yahweh, to the priest who sprinkles the blood of the peace offering. It is his.
Again, and Yahweh says, I want the priesthood to have this, okay?
As for the flesh of the slaughtering of his peace offering for thanksgiving, it is eaten the same day it is offered. He does not leave any of it until morning.
Okay, so for the Torah of the Thanksgiving peace offering, it is eaten the same day. So the offerer could take their portion home to eat, and then the rest was given to the priesthood.
And if the offering he brings is a vow or a voluntary offering, it is eaten the same day that he brings his slaughtering, and what is left of it is eaten the next day.
Okay, so unlike the Thanksgiving one, if you made a peace offering for a vow or a voluntary peace offering, you were allowed to keep that meat for 2 days, okay? And for the Thanksgiving, you could only keep it 1 day.
But whatever is left of the flesh of the slaughtering on the third day is burned with fire. However, if any of the flesh of his peace offering is eaten at all on the third day, it is not accepted. It is not reckoned to him who brings it. It is unclean to him, and the being who eats of it bears his crookedness.
Okay, so again, Yahweh is very specific. So on the third day, you would have to just burn the rest of it. Anything that's left over, you don't get to eat.
And the flesh that touches that which is unclean is not eaten. It is burned with fire. And as for the clean flesh, all who are clean eat of it. But the being who eats the flesh of the peace offering that belongs to Yahweh, while he is unclean, that being shall be cut off from his people. And when a being who touches that which is unclean, of the uncleanness of man, or of the uncleanness of beast, or of any unclean swarming creature, and shall eat the flesh of the peace offering that belongs to Yahweh, that being shall be cut off from his people.
Okay. So you would have to be in a state of tahor to eat of this. So if you accidentally came in contact with something that is unclean or defiled, you would not be able then to partake of this.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Do not eat any fat of bull or sheep or goat, and the fat of a dead body, and the fat of what is torn is used for any purpose, but you do not eat it at all. For whoever eats the fat of the beast of which men bring as an offering made by fire to Yahweh, even the being who eats it shall be cut off from his people. And do not eat any blood in any of your dwellings, of bird or of beast. Any being who eats any blood, even that being shall be cut off from his people.
Okay, so this is just a reiteration from chapter 3 about the peace offering. That fat that was supposed to be burned on the altar, you are not to eat that. That goes to Yahweh, okay? And then also the blood is something you would not partake of as well. Because, they would look around at their neighbors and they're doing all this crazy stuff. But, he's like, you're set apart. We don't do that.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, He who brings his peace offering to Yahweh brings his offering to Yahweh from the slaughtering of his peace offering.
Okay, and there you have all the different animals that you would be allowed to bring for a peace offering.
With his own hands, he brings the offerings made by fire to Yahweh. He brings the fat with the breast to be waved as a wave offering before Yahweh.
Okay, so here we have the breast being waved here by the priest.
And the priest shall burn the fat on the altar, but the breast shall be Aharon's and his sons.
Okay, so here we have that visceral fat being burned from the peace offering, and then the breast portion would go to Aharon and his sons.
And the right thigh you give to the priest as a contribution from your peace offerings.
Okay, here we go. So now we have that right thigh being waved by the priest, and then all the different offerers bringing it to them.
He among the sons of Aharon, who brings the blood of the peace offering and the fat, the right thigh is his for a portion.
Okay, so they get the breast and the thigh. So I love this because, if you like dark meat, you're good. If you like light meat, you're good, So Rabbi likes the light meat, I like the dark meat, so we're good.
For the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the contribution I have taken from the children of Israel, from their peace offerings. And I give them to Aharon the priest and to his sons, a law forever from the children of Israel.
Okay.
This is the anointed portion for Aharon and the anointed portion for his sons, from the offerings made by fire to Yahweh, on the day when Moshe presented them to serve as priests to Yahweh, which Yahweh commanded to be given to them by the children of Israel, on the day that he anointed them, a law forever throughout their generations.
So here we show the priesthood with their family eating the breast and the thigh, because of course their children would eat as well. So let's see, I have here written that we should look at Leviticus 10:14 and read that. Do you have it, or do I just need to look it up? Leviticus 10:14.
You looked it up before, but I can.
Okay. Okay. And the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the contribution you eat in a clean place, you and your sons and your daughters with you. For they are yours by law and your sons by law, which are given from the slaughterings of peace offerings of the children of Israel. Okay, and then also another witness is in Numbers 18:11. This also is yours, the contribution of their gift with all the wave offerings of the children of Israel. I've given them to you and your sons and daughters with you as a law forever. Everyone who is clean in your house eats it. So Yahweh just really made sure that they were taken care of because they did a lot of service for the children of Israel. So that's why he said it multiple times, because sometimes we as children of Israel forget what Yahweh says.
This is the Torah of the burnt offering, of the grain offering, and of the sin offering, and of the guilt offering, and of the ordinations, and of the peace offering, which Yahweh commanded Moshe on Mount Sinai on the day when he commanded the children of Israel to bring their offerings to Yahweh in the wilderness of Sinai.
Okay, so that is just like a conclusion of, okay, so these are all the offerings that I gave you, and this is all the Torah for them, and so follow it. And so now we're going to go into chapter 8, and we'll be learning about the ordination of the priesthood. This is a reiteration from Exodus, and I know we didn't have visuals this year for that, so this will be exciting.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Take Aharon and his sons with him, and the garments, and the anointing oil, and the bull of the sin offering, and the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread.
Okay, so these are the things that they brought so that they could partake of the ordination process, which took 8 days. Again, this was found in Exodus 29. This is the first time we see the whole process of the ordination.
And assemble all the congregation at the door of the tent of meeting. And Moshe did as Yahweh commanded him, and the congregation was assembled at the door of the tent of meeting.
Okay, so that way everyone could witness this. You know, everybody got to see what Yahweh had wanted, who his servants were. And the most important thing here is I love that it says, and Moshe did as Yahweh commanded him. We're going to see that a lot.
And Moshe said to the congregation, This is the word Yahweh commanded to be done. So Moshe brought Aharon and his sons and washed them with water, and put the long shirt on him, and girded him with the girdle, and dressed him in the robe, and put the shoulder garment on him, and girded him with the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and with it tied the shoulder garment on him, and put the breastplate on him, and put the Urim and the Thummim in the breastplate, and put the turban on his head, and on the turban, on its front, he put the gold plate, the set-apart sign of dedication, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
Okay, so again, they did exactly as Yahweh had commanded them. They could not do their service until all this was done. So they had to follow this exactly as Yahweh wanted.
And Moshe took the anointing oil and anointed the dwelling place and all that was in it, and set them apart. And he sprinkled some of it on the altar 7 times, and anointed the altar and all its utensils, and the basin and its base, to set them apart. And he poured some of the anointing oil on Aharon's head, and anointed him, to set him apart.
Okay, so you see this is Moshe doing this. He's already in his appointed role. Yahweh called him to do his role, and so he is now, who is above Aharon, doing what he needs to do to set Aharon apart.
And Moshe brought the sons of Aharon, and put long shirts on them, and girded them with girdles, and put turbans on them, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
As Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
And he brought the bull for the sin offering. And Aharon and his sons laid their hands on the head of the bull for the sin offering.
So this is for the sin offering, as we had said in chapter 4, that the priesthood would have to bring a bull for that.
And it was slaughtered. And Moshe took the blood and put some on the horns of the altar all around with his finger and cleansed the altar. And he poured the blood at the base of the altar and set it apart to make atonement for it.
Okay. I know when we were fixing the slides, I guess we didn't put the one with the blood on the horns of the altar. We'll have to remember that for next year.
And he took all the fat that was on the entrails, and the appendage on the liver, and the 2 kidneys with their fat, and Moshe burned them on the altar.
Okay.
And the bull, and its skin, and its flesh, and its dung, he burned with fire outside the camp, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And he brought the ram of the burnt offering, and Aharon and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram. And it was slaughtered, and Moshe sprinkled the blood on the altar all around.
Okay. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. He actually did not need the blood. You had the right slide. The blood was on the horns of the altar of incense for the bull. Remember, he sprinkled it on the veil, and then he put it on the altar of incense, and then the rest of it was poured out on the bronze altar. So, my bad. You did great. Okay.
And he cut the ram into pieces, and Moshe burned the head and the pieces and the fat.
Okay, so this is the burnt offering, so it followed the same protocol as in chapter 1.
Wait, don't change it yet. I did this last year because I had it on the wrong page. And he washed the entrails and the legs in water, and Moshe burned the entire ram on the altar. It was a burnt offering for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahweh, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
Okay, so here, instead of the priesthood doing this because they were not ordained yet, we show Moshe doing all the things that you would need to do if you were the offerer and also if you were the priesthood.
And he brought the second ram, the ram of ordination, and Aharon and his sons laid their hands on the head of the ram, and it was slaughtered. And Moshe took some of its blood and put it on the tip of Aharon's right ear, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And he brought near the sons of Aharon. And Moshe put some of the blood on the tips of their right ears, and on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the big toes of their right feet. And Moshe sprinkled the blood on the altar all around. And took the fat and the fat tail, and all the fat that was on the entrails, and the appendage on the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and their fat, and the right thigh, and from the basket of unleavened bread that was before Yahweh, he took 1 unleavened cake, and a cake of bread anointed with oil, and 1 thin cake, and put them on the fat and on the right thigh, and placed all these in the hands of Aharon and in the hands of his sons, and waved them as a wave offering before Yahweh.
I love this drawing. We did a really good job with this. So you can see the bread here on top of, the kidneys, and we have the fat tail. So they're waving them before Yahweh.
Moshe then took them from their hands and burned them on the altar, on the burnt offering. They were ordinations for a sweet fragrance. It was an offering by fire to Yahweh. And Moshe took the breast and waved it, a wave offering before Yahweh. It was Moshe's portion of the ram of ordination, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe.
Okay, so like the priesthood would have gotten that portion, he gets that portion.
And Moshe took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood which was on the altar and sprinkled it on Aharon, on his garments, and on his sons, and on the garments of his sons with him. And he set apart Aharon, his garments, and his sons, and the garments of his sons with him. And Moshe said to Aharon and his sons, "Cook the flesh at the door of the tent of meeting, and eat it there with the bread that is in the basket of the ordinations, as I have commanded, saying, Aharon and his sons are to eat it. Then burn the rest of the flesh and the bread with fire. And do not go outside the door of the tent of meeting for 7 days, until the days of your ordination are completed, for he fills your hands for 7 days. Yahweh has commanded to do, as he has done this day, to make atonement for you. And stay at the door of the tent of meeting day and night for 7 days. And you shall guard the duty of Yahweh and not die, for so I have been commanded."
Okay, so for 7 days they were in the courtyard repeating this process. It's the week of completion. So tradition says they started on Sunday and ended on Shabbat. So they were just giving themselves wholly to their duty, and that Yahweh, it says that Yahweh filled their hands for 7 days, so he took care of them.
And Aharon and his sons did all the words that Yahweh had commanded by the hand of Moshe.
Okay, so this is just setting the example for us to follow, as Moshe did, doing all that Yahweh had commanded him. And I love that in the Brit Hadashah that Yeshua even said, that I do everything that my Father has commanded me to do. So may we be found so doing. All right, so I just want to show you, so we just finished Tzav. We did pretty good. It's, yikes, 9:30. So we had some pages in Tzav too. So we had gone over all those different Torah of the burnt offering and the peace offering and the sin offering. So this is just a little refresher page of all that. And then do we have another one? No, I need to find the craft. We already showed that one. We showed the mandatory one. Yeah, so we showed all of them. That one's for Tzav, yeah. Yeah, so that's all our crafts, and that's our slideshow presentation. I hope this was a blessing to you and that you can remember this.
All right, you guys, you can stay there in case they have questions. I'll come up here to answer questions.
Okay.
All right, so once again, awesome job by Rebbe and Julie and Selena. All right, so we got 30 minutes here to spend on some comments and questions. So if anybody has anything they want to ask, we might not answer it, but you can ask. All right, so you can come on up. We got the podium set. If you're on live stream, you can start typing those in. That would be fine. All right, we'll begin with you, Tom.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Appreciate the presentation very much, Robinson.
Oh, you're welcome.
Question I have was noticing that the high priest portions of the ceremonies, they had to have no shoes on. Does that reference go back to when Moshe was near the burning bush and the Lord said, take off your feet, you're on holy ground?
I mean, that would certainly be a good guess. It doesn't say, but that'd certainly be a good guess.
And the other question I had was, I never made the connection between the different ceremonies based on the feast. And the question I have is, was this in preparation for Yeshua showing up in the most holy dwelling place when the cloud and the flame was there? Because I remember in the last Torah study, Moshe could not go into the dwelling place because the presence of the Lord was there. Was this to prepare the people for when he came to dwell with them?
Okay, this is a kind of an important topic because this comes up on a regular basis. What is the relationship between Yeshua and the temple? Okay, I think that there's probably a lot that the temple does to point to him, but I want to make sure that one thing is very clear: nothing that was done in the temple was replaced by, accomplished by, or had anything to do with Yeshua's death. His death, I know that may not be your question, I'm just saying, but that's an important piece of this. I know a lot of people are very excited about and study, a lot about the temple and temple service and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of interesting things there. But one of the questions that comes up to me all the time is, well, what did Yeshua have to do as far as these things? Because Christianity teaches you that his death was the end of the sacrificial system. Of course, it didn't end for another 40 years, okay? But, and it's not ended permanently either. We know the third temple will have sacrifices. So this is important to understand. He was not offered on an altar. He wasn't slaughtered in the temple. He was outside. And so nothing was done that would have been what was done in the temple. And that's one of the things that we should be seeing here. Now, are there things that you can extrapolate out of the temple function to point to things like the holy days, to point to things like other things like that, even pointing towards Yeshua? Absolutely. I'm sure there are those things. I don't study this that deeply because, as you know, I'm much more practical at this point. No temple. I'm not so worried about what to do with it. I want to teach you what to do now, and now we don't have a temple to do with, right? But that being said, Rebbetzin loves to study this stuff, which is why I love to let her do this kind of a program. But also, I wanted you to see how amazing the MTOI Parsha Pearl stuff is. I mean, incredible stuff, isn't it? So maybe it might inspire some of you that don't have children. Well, go download the stuff anyway. I mean, I'm sure you'll learn something. Don't get all haughty and cocky as an adult thinking you won't learn something from a kids program. This is a pretty deep kids program, okay? You'll learn something. But as far as your question, the best answer I can give you is yes, a lot of what was going on pointed to, prepared the people in some ways for. But I just want to make sure it's clear that what he did, though, had nothing to do with that system existing or how it functioned, because what was going on there had nothing to do with he did.
I understand.
Okay.
I say that or wondered that because you said from your other teaching that Yahweh can't dwell with sin. In other words, Yeshua is the only one that came and revealed himself to Moshe and others, Abraham, etc. I was just wondering how that worked out with them dwelling in the 40 years in the desert. They did this. How often he came to dwell with them, and was this to prepare them?
Okay, now, see, you need a father and son teaching refresher. Okay? Because in the father and son, I said that the one that was sitting there talking to Moses was Yeshua. So don't get the Yahweh, Yeshua being the two different names to the two different beings. Both of them had the same name, Yahweh, back then. Because it says Yahweh sent down fire and brimstone from Yahweh.
Okay.
So when Moses was meeting with, he wasn't meeting with the Father, who can't come down and interact with sin and death. He was interacting with the Son. That's a big part of the Father and Son teaching. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Deirdre.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
Shalom, Rebbetzin. I really love it when you do these. So a couple observations and a couple questions. So it was very interesting to me. In Christianity, we are taught that the sacrifices had to be, especially the sheep and the goats, had to be pure white. Clearly, that's not the case. So can you kind of define what pure Yahweh, what did Yahweh mean by pure, if not like the white coloration?
You have an answer for that, or you want me to go? It doesn't matter. All right. Go ahead. Let me hear what you have. I want to hear it. Put you on the spot. All right. Look. Okay. There's two aspects to the color, right? I mean, when you're dealing with a live animal, it's hard to have them have no blemishes whatsoever. Okay, that's going to be a very rare thing. As a matter of fact, this is what they're looking for in this red heifer that they keep looking for, right? It has to have pure red hair, so to speak, and not one white one or something like that that's in there. Right. So it's very rare to have a purely, I mean, look, if take somebody who's blonde, they can have other streaks of other things. Okay, look at my hair; it's mostly white now, but it's like a black in there somewhere, right? It's rare that you have a purely one color deal, right?
Straight.
Okay, and so Yahweh would have been wanting you pick out the one that is the purest, that matches the criteria the best you can, and that would be what we're looking at. Okay, remember, even us. Even when we're washed clean, we're washed clean, so to speak, by the blood, we're still stained. We're clean, but stained, okay? So the slight off colors that might be in an animal is like a stain that's there. They were born with it in that case. I mean, we're not born with it, but, I'm not an original sin person, we're born with it. What I'm saying is, but we're stained from the things that we've done, all right?
Okay, I was just wondering, because I know that the sheep can be like speckled or whatever, so I was wondering if that had something to do with it, or like the animal had to be like as solid a color as possible.
As soon as I find a Kohen, I'll get that answer.
Sorry.
Look, these are got to remember. Okay, part of what you guys all have to understand again, and Rebbetzin did mention one thing which I expect to come up maybe or not, but anyway, the context that we have to have, okay, always is who is this towards? Okay, this is the book of the Levites. Okay, it's to the Levites. And so we need to understand that that's the key here, right? This book was written as instruction manual for the Levites. Now, the people needed to know their part in some of these things as it related to the Levites, all right? So some things were also understood a lot more clearly by them then, since it was written to them, not to us. It was written for us and for them, but it was only written to them. And they understood things much more clearly, especially anything that was, anybody ever look at an instruction manual, still need to call customer service or somebody to find out something? They could always go to Moses and find out what they needed to know back then that was beyond what was written in the book. No functioning temple, we don't have anybody there that actually understands and is doing these things. So we're going to be missing some of these things and be off a little bit on some of these things just because of that, all right?
Okay. Yeah. I think what he wanted was when you're having your animal that you're picking out to bring, is you're not going to say, hey, man, this one looks a little bit bad or sickly or something. I'm just going to bring that, because then I think they would be instructed to bring something that is the best that they have to bring it to Yahweh. So it didn't have to be pure white, but it had to be the best that they had, right? So you wouldn't bring, your one that just had a broken foot and say, I think I'm going to give a Thanksgiving offering today because, my sheep broke its foot. So no, you couldn't do that.
Right. So the quality of it is, look, think of it. If it's not a sacrifice per se, but if you are making a sacrifice, like in other words, giving up of something, we're talking about sacrifice that way, like where, I'm going to, sacrifice and give up something, right? All right, well, they're giving up this animal as an offering, then it has more value if it has more value. It has less value if the animal had less value, right? Because it's a bigger sacrifice for you to do it in a bigger way, okay?
Okay. That was just me trying to unlearn past
That's fine.
stuff. So another thing, the observation that I really liked, I love the Eish Tamid, the eternal flame, and how it just connects like how we're supposed to have that eternal flame for Yahweh, for obedience to Torah. And one of my favorite songs that I was given still in Christianity, it's called Embers. One of the, it talks about how, don't let the fire die out, even if you feel like the embers are cold someday, just fan the flame back. Don't let the fire die. And so that's just kind of how Yahweh downloaded to me, like, be that. Just find a way to be that every day. Don't find a day where the fire's not burning.
Right. Right. I have to process that a little differently because I read that as being an appeal to an emotion, and I don't do emotion. So, for all you SF types, that's all emotion. I'm an NT, not emotional. So, but that fire for me would be the discipline of the commitment, right? For you, it's also that fire of the love commitment from an emotional standpoint. Like, don't let the emotion connection between you and him die in the ember. So I get that, but I could see that they were in Christianity, where the song would have come from, would have been thinking much more emotionally. I know, but I'm just saying this is what I'm hearing, and I'm realizing that how I'm hearing things now, I'm going, oh, that's because I'm recognizing if it's emotional or more intellectual. I don't know, whatever the word is, right? Okay, Janet.
Thank you, Rabbi Tzin. That was amazing. That was really good. I was talking to my husband while you were doing that. I was like, oh my gosh, how Vera did all these drawings. That's incredible, her talent. And I feel so bad for the little animals. I was like, did they know that they were going to be, slaughtered when they were bringing them? I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if they were in fear or not. But I love how you just explained that the way they killed, they cut their jugular, and that helped to, I suppose, to not make it so traumatizing for them. But my question, Rabbi, thank you for being there. My question is, so there was a part of the offering that was set apart for the priest, right, and the family, that they got to eat and enjoy. But that was on top of the tithe that they were given.
Right.
Correct?
Right. Because remember, a lot. Yes. Okay. So this was a meal that they would have had right then and there, as opposed to the tithe being in grains and animals that were alive that they would have then had for other things, including wool and stuff like that, as far as using the other parts of the animals for other things. So.
And an example of a sin that was not intended, would that be, because I was thinking, we don't know that we're sinning, but I guess that could be like if we recognize, we ate something, then we thought we checked, and then it wasn't what we're supposed to eat. Would that be an example of that?
Yes. I mean, so an unintentional sin is one that you did not consciously decide, I'm going to do this, because we do things that we know are wrong, and we know they're wrong, and we do them anyway. We all do, okay? But there are things that you do, and you thought, I thought I read the label right on that box. Or, look, we had a problem one time. We ordered food, and it came, and it was the wrong food. We didn't know it was the wrong food, but it didn't have only clean food in it. Clean, as far as it certainly was unintentional. Right. Because they just sent the wrong order. Because two people ordered something similarly, and we got the wrong one. So we didn't know. We just assumed it was what we ordered. So that's an unintentional, right? Could be also out of ignorance. You didn't know, and then you find out later, I wasn't supposed to do that. So you could choose to do an offering for that.
And Rabbi, since we don't have a temple, right, and we're not obviously Levites, what can we take from this? I mean, I appreciate the presentation, but what would be something that we can take from this to apply in our lives, Rabbi? Thank you.
I mean, there's so many things we could take out of anything to do with the temple and the offerings, but I mean, the simplest thing I would say, if you would ask me, what was it that the Father was trying to convey here, okay? What was he trying to get across? I mean, generationally, we've changed so much and become much weaker in the way we, as a family, discipline each other and deal with, like, rules of the house and stuff. But, back in the day, it wasn't uncommon at all for a house to have a swear jar, or something jar that, every time you did it, something that was agreed to, as the family said, this is not something we do here, you had to put some money in the jar. What was the point of the jar? That if it cost you enough, maybe you'd stop. Okay? So sin had a very much an immediate price. These things had a price. Okay? It also showed you how much you trusted him, that if you made a voluntary offering of some sort, that you trusted that he would still compensate and provide for you, that you can handle that. But the idea is that there's a price for things, okay? Which I guess in a way, Tom had asked the question about with Yeshua, showing that there's a price that gets paid, okay? That ultimately there's a price to pay, and Yeshua paid a price. We were bought with a price, all right? Did that answer the question? All right. Mr. Chris Wybe.
Hi. So I've looked at some of these verses together with Hebrews a couple times now, and I found a word that is in both places that is interesting to me. There's a lot of different ways you could take it, I think. But so in Leviticus 8, I think it was Leviticus 8.
If you have the wrong verse, we'll have to ask you to sit down.
I know. Okay. It was talking about the ordination of the priests.
Yeah.
And the word for that in both the Hebrew and the Greek have to do with like the ordination or the filling of the hands, I think might be a separate word. But it's having to do with completion. Like in Leviticus 8:22, talking about the ram of ordination and then the priest being kind of completed or perfected. And then in Hebrews 10:14, it says, "For by one offering he has perfected for all time those who are being set apart." And so I was seeing that repetition also in a different place. Oh, Hebrews 7 talking about Melchizedek, of course, in this part. With verse 11, truly then if perfection were through the Levitical priesthood, and the blah, 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 it talks about that.
Right.
That the idea of like making yourself get to a certain level of being perfect by different offerings. And then I think there's like one more place. I just thought it was interesting that word is used the same like in both places, and talking about either the ordination of the priests or being it's different because in the ordination of the priest, they had this ritual that they went through for 7 days, and that was like the ordination. Right. And then in Hebrews, it's talking about how an offering is making someone perfect. So I have more to probably look at that, but that was interesting.
All right, so one of the things that we can see is that there's different ways to be restored. Okay, that's kind of what the offerings kind of go about. People might say, well, without the shedding of blood, there's no forgiveness of sin, but then we can see that you can do a grain offering, and that could have a forgiveness level to it, okay? So it's not exactly that, but we're talking about from the idea of verses of redemption versus repentance. And so it's more complex than what people are normally talking about. The way you brought out the idea of perfection, I think that's really cool to look at it from the point of view that what Torah was meant to, when Israel first comes out of Egypt and they're given this covenant through Torah, was Torah meant the way it was given and explained in the Old Testament to perfect you? Or was it there simply to test your trust obedience, like we read in Deuteronomy 8:2, right? To test whether it's in your heart to obey. So then Yeshua comes and says, well, now that you understand obedience, I need you to become perfect. So he started giving them an insight as to where their internal failures were. And so that's where this high priest in Hebrews is more concerned about perfection than Moses and Aaron, the high priest in Israel's time coming out of Egypt, wasn't as focused on perfection, but on trust obedience. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it seems like even from the beginning, there's that emphasis on perfection through the Melchizedekian, where you get in Genesis 17, like the first thing Yahweh says, "Be perfect," and then you have the Melchizedekian part, a few chapters before that. Right. Seems like there's that thread that's going on before we get to Leviticus, and then coming back to that afterward.
Right. And again, it's kind of like you got to start somewhere, right? And so becoming perfect is a lot harder to do than simply stop eating certain things and keep certain days and do certain things. The mechanical stuff's much easier, you know? And so the expectation, you know, when we were dealing with much smaller groups of people and individuals with Melchizedek, with Avram, compared to the whole nation of Israel coming out of Egypt, it's like, well, you guys need to learn to crawl before you start running, okay? And all of us, I think, can agree that the internal growth towards quote-unquote perfection is a much, much more arduous and intimidating process compared to just figuring out what to eat or not, or what days to keep, and, you know, those kind of mechanical things, right? Not murdering or not stealing or whatever. Just, I mean, those are simple enough things to do. But the growing up, that Yeshua shifts the emphasis. Like he says, well, you guys are great with your tithing on even the little leaves of these herbs, but what about the mercy and the compassion and these harder internal perfecting things? And so you can see that there's a different focus, okay? But that focus is not instead of Christians, okay, pay attention. It's on top of. It's a build up. It's layered up. It's an added thing. I don't mean added like don't add or take away. I mean like now he's saying now that you handle this basic stuff as a little child, let's go ahead and grow into the full adult by working on that internal stuff. So Yeshua talks about planks in the eyes, and he talks about all these wonderful parables about the internal stuff. You know, the whole parable of the sower of the seed is all about how inside you are as far as what kind of ground you are, okay? Like all of that stuff that he gave was about internal growth. He assumed they had the mechanics down. He was talking to Jews. He figured you guys understand that. Whether you do it or not, you understand it. Okay? I mean, I grew up with a lot of Jews that didn't keep very much, but they all knew what it was. So he said, I don't need to reteach you that stuff. You're either doing it or you're not. But I'm going to teach you that if you're doing it, you're only halfway there. The internal growth is the other half of that. You know, Paul referred to it as like, you guys are choking on the milk. I want to feed you meat, but you can't. Because adults eat meat, you guys are still children choking on the milk bottle, all right? And that's where you're not going to get where you need to get if that's the case, all right? All right, good. Live stream, maybe time for one or two. We've got about 9 minutes, 8 minutes.
All right, from Janelle has a question about Leviticus 3:5. I know in the past you've said offal is okay to eat. Can you please clarify what this verse is saying?
All right, so Rebbetzin covered it. You missed it. We'll start again, okay? But Rebbetzin and I talked about this yesterday just to make sure we were clear, earlier today, whatever it was, last night, I think. Okay, look, context. Remember I said that earlier. This book is not written to you or them. It was written to the priests, okay? If you read 3:5, it says, and the sons of Aaron shall burn it on the altar upon the burnt offering, which is on the wood, which is on the fire, as an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. Okay, and then it talks about that. Where's the verse, sweetheart? Where's those verses that we were talking about?
Are they talking about the fat?
Yeah. Isn't that what we're talking about here?
I don't know. It says Opha. What's Opha?
Offal. I think that sounds pretty awful, but
The organs.
the organs. Okay, again. Let's make this real simple. Do you know the verse where it says that the thigh belongs to the Levite as a forever, as an ordinance forever?
Yeah.
Did that mean that all the Israelites, whenever they got the animal and cut it, they took the thigh and brought it to the Levite? No. It meant that as part of the offering, when they made an offering, that the Levite got the thigh. Because some of the offerings you could eat with them, but that was for them. That wasn't for you. Okay? So let's understand when it's talking about things like the fat, when it's talking about things like the various things here, this is when they're doing an offering, that which is supposed to be burnt is not supposed to be eaten. And he's telling the Levites, you can't eat this stuff. It goes on the altar and gets burnt. Okay? And it happens in a few different chapters that we've read, okay, in today's discussion. So let's just understand that that's where this is talking about. Be careful, because whatever the verse says, do not eat this, within a verse before or after, it's clear that they're still talking about the sacrificial system, okay? When they bring the animals for sacrifice. I think there's one in chapter 7, and there was another one I just don't remember where they are. Because we talked about them yesterday. I was hoping that she would remember. But anyway. All right, so here, okay, when it says, speak to the children of Israel, 7:23, do not eat any fat of the bull or sheep or goat. And the fat of a dead body and the fat of that is torn is used for any purpose, but you don't eat it at all. For whoever eats the fat of the beast of which men bring as an offering made by fire to Yahweh, even the being who eats it shall be cut off. So that's the animal you're bringing to make the offering. You can't eat this stuff. Not any animal, meaning a sheep, a goat, or whatever, that can be offered. It's still in Leviticus. We're still dealing with offerings, and we haven't finished talking about offerings here. Okay? And so my right ruling, or whatever, okay, my opinion is that you can eat these things that are clean from the clean animals, as long as it's not being used or brought for an offering. Okay, and since we're not bringing any offerings, it's not a problem. Okay, because Yahweh says specifically all that stuff goes on the offering and is burnt. It's part of the burnt part of that offering. And so you can't have that. It's supposed to be burnt. It's his, and it gets burnt. And by burnt, it means like burnt until it's not gone. I mean, it's burnt. It's not just well cooked and then eaten, okay? I mean, it's burnt until there's nothing left, ashes, right? It's burnt to ashes. And so he's saying, because I've already told you, remember, we're talking to children here, all right? They're adults, but they're children. Because I've already told you that you get to eat certain things, I'm telling you here, this is not one of them. You don't get to eat this when it's brought as an offering. This gets put on the fire, burnt, and you don't get to eat it. Does that make sense now to everybody? More clear? Okay? All right. One more.
Great. And just to preface, I asked for a reference on this one, but they didn't provide it. How would Aaron's sons, from Shannon, how would Aaron's sons be able to eliminate for the 7 days?
Oh, I am so tempted with one-liners. Okay, look. Let's just go with not our problem. I mean, obviously, let's not worry about that, okay? There must have been something in place there for that, all right? Okay? I mean, look, I love the fact that we all look at these curious things and go, I wonder how that was dealt with. See, but I don't deal with the interesting, because that's an interesting question. It's not of any use to anybody, but it's an interesting question. I'm not picking on the person who wrote the question. All of us read stuff sometimes and go, man, I wonder how that worked out. I do that all the time. I don't spend a whole lot of attention on it once I have that thought, because it's not functionally that useful to me, okay? So I don't have a good answer for you on how that was worked out. Okay, I think we're going to have to end it here so people have time to get over to the zone room for zone 3 tonight. Okay, so we're going to end it here. I hope that was good. Another excellent job by my wife, Rebbetzin Julie, and with assistance from Selena and the people in the back putting the slides up on the screen.
Yes.
Thank you, Tommy, and Tom and the rest of the crew back there that helped with all that. All right. So if you'll all rise, we'll close in prayer, and we'll end that prayer by Mr. Rick Bohe.
Evening once again, Father. I want to thank you for Miss Rebbetzin there and Miss Vera and their teachings, Miss Selena, and all of them. It was beautiful watching Rebbetzin, Rabbi standing over her shoulder right there, her covering. Y'all are beautiful. I just really appreciate all of you. I really do. Go with us tonight, Father. No, help us to go with you tonight, Father. Continue in your Shabbat with our family. I thank you for this Zoom meeting we're getting ready to attend. I thank you for the voice here that's able to answer our questions. Keep us safe as we go home. Bring us back together again tomorrow. And help us to prepare ourselves for this Passover feast coming up. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen, amen. All right. Yeah, we're all in blue. All right, so we're going to connect with our live stream family and tell them to hurry up and get in the Zone 3 meeting. And so we're going to connect with everybody out there, and we want to wish them all a Shabbat Shalom and tell them that we love them. Here we go. On 3. 1, 2,
3.